what was it like dealing with that injury and understanding what you could do on a bike and couldn't, and thus having to make a career in a
So
different
I'll
way?
take you a year before that. I had just won the district ride, won the most money, and now I got invited by Tarek Razuli, who's like the gatekeeper for all the events in Europe. And he's like, we're doing this 5-stop, 5-country, 5 different free ride discipline tour through Europe next year. We're taking 10 guys, and you're one of the 10 guys. And it's like Bear Claw and Zink and Straight and McCall and, you know, I, it was just it was a sick group of riders, and I was in there, and it was like, great, we're all going to compete and go to from country to country 5 weeks in a row for Nissan, who's paying for the entire event. And I get to the first one in Newcastle, England, and was riding, great and getting my run kind of finalized. And it was my last time doing the run before qualifying. And they had this like wooden step up onto a platform, and then it turned, and then a 2x4 that just goes, let's say 25, 30 feet long. So it's pretty freaking long. And then there's hay bales underneath it. And it was about an 8-foot drop. So it was high enough to feel pretty scary. And people were screwing up, but when they screwed up, they like hit their brakes, stopped because they're out of balance, and then hopped over the top tube and jumped all the way down and landed on the hay bales. So this last one, I had hopped up and I was riding across it, and I was just kind of leaning over my bars to get down to the very end of it. And my back tire slipped off, and I kind of cased the side of it, and the side of the structure that broke a little bit too. And some of the boards came off, and I came backwards off the side of it, and I fell into a wall. So I kind of like fell, and I hit the wall, and then I hit the ground in a seated position. So I was like, boom, boom. So I was straight up and down, which gave me a burst fracture of my L1 vertebrae. And it's like smashing a donut on a table. The vertebrae like crumbled all the way around, but it didn't shear and ding my spinal cord. It just, the whole thing compacted and cracked all the way around. So when it did that, it kind of pinched my spinal cord, but it didn't shear it. So I hit the ground thinking of how bad this injury was going to be as I was falling, and going, oh fuck, I'm like landing right on my ass. I'm going to break my pelvis and like all this stuff. And then I hit the ground like a sack of potatoes. My everything from my waist down was completely shut off. I was holding the weight off of my back with my hands. So now my hands are on the ground, just holding weight off of my spine. My back's on fire, and my legs don't move at all. And as an athlete, you already know what just happened. And I was just yelling, like maybe in disbelief, like I can't feel my legs, like it's like somebody could help me or something like that. Like I fell in the water, help me out. Like it was like that, but no one can do anything for you. The paramedics came over, put me on a backboard and strapped me all down, got me in the ambulance. Cam McCall jumped in the ambulance with me, and my legs started to come back once I got to the hospital. So they were probably off for 15 minutes or 20 minutes maybe, or something like that. Long enough that, everybody around at the event and everything else all just watched their buddy get paralyzed. So that was a rough one for everybody. And then my legs came back once I got to the hospital, but I was strapped down, so I was just doing like circles with my ankles. And then I was flat on a bed for 10 days, and then I got the rods in my back, which I brought out here because I knew we were talking about it. So this is what they put in my back.
Wow. So if you're listening
Right.
and not watching, what's that? 2 inches, those screws?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like as long as my pinky or whatever.
Yeah,
They're
that's, and it's
they're big enough that they're big enough when you screw this into your spine, you feel it. And this was the cage. This was in
Bottom of your
the
spine.
yeah,
Yeah.
the one above it and below it were
Uh
fused,
huh.
and then the one in the middle was right here. And they take bone off of your hip and pack it all around the busted up L1, and then they put those screws in and mount it all up, and then they sew you all back up, and then you're off and running, I guess. But I was in England for like 3 weeks straight, getting that all taken care of, and then until I flew back home. Nissan bought me a flight in business class on Virgin Atlantic, so I was like, I had my own like lay down bed. I could be like perfectly flat. I was really fragile though, but for 10 days I had an unstable spine where I laid flat on my back with no pillow, staring at the ceiling for the whole time, in a different country that has a different medical system. So in the US, when I broke my femur, I had my own hotel room and I was able to call down and get a milkshake if I wanted to or whatever. And in England, you're in a room with a dozen other people and everybody has like cloth dividers, and you get to hear when somebody's waking up in pain, when somebody's coughing, when somebody's moaning, when somebody's crapping, like all it's just. And then, 10 days later, I'm the one moaning and screaming after my surgery. And it's just, it was the biggest slap in the face that I've ever taken of, just kind of, wow, this is all fun and games until, you beat yourself up this bad. And for a while I was getting awesome, getting hurt, getting better, getting awesome, getting hurt, getting better. And it was like I broke my sternum and ribs and my elbow and my foot and then my femur and then my back, and I'm paralyzed. And I'm like, oh my god, like I'm like killing myself here. Um, so it was such a sobering time for me that when I got home, um, I my wife and we decided to have a kid. Like it was always something we've been talking about, but then when I got home, I was like, let's do it. Let's have a kid. Like